Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Lichfield series, a district of Staffordshire containing 28 civil parishes of England. It's a gorgeous area too, so let's see which bit we're admiring today. Welcome back to Lichfield again, people, and today you find me in a place called Haunton, which is not the name of this parish because it falls within the parish of Clifton Campville. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Here we are again in Lichfield, everyone, and this week we're taking on the parish of Clifton Campville. It's important to note here that the parish and the village are two different things. Clifton Campville is the main settlement, but the boundaries also include Haunton, which has its own little tale to tell. In 1848, the parish included both Haunton and Harlaston, as well as the Leicestershire village of Chilcote, which back then was in Derbyshire. Boy, it's fun doing these ones close to county borders. Both Clifton Campville and Haunton lie in the Mease Valley, roughly 10 miles east of Lichfield and 7 miles north of Tamworth. Clifton's name is easy to understand. The first part is Old English and means cliff farm, whilst Camvill is a corruption of a family name, de Camvill, who held land here in the 13th century. The name has also been recorded in the past as Clistone. Haunton's name is a little less obvious, but we'll get to that in the main walk. Clifton is one of the biggest villages in the Mease Valley and has grown far more in the last century than any of its near neighbours. Sitting as it does on a hill, it offers some fine views of this part of Staffordshire, most notably from the area directly behind its church. And speaking of that church, it's by far one of the grandest and most historic in Staffordshire. Trust me, it will take your breath away. Let's go and see what it looks like then, shall we? Before we go to Clifton Campville, first up is a short walk around the village of Haunton, which also falls within its boundaries. A pretty little place, Haunton has won a few awards over the years, a lot of which are noted on this village sign. You'll find it next to this little shelter which was decked out with bunting. This is used as a village information point. There's a parish notice board in here, so I did the usual honours, although I did find a second one later in Clifton Campville. A left turn and we head down Clistone Lane, a gated road. Clistone was a village between Haunton and Wigginton. It was a tiny village with no more than 5 houses, and it was deserted between 1334 and 1524. Its name still lives on today. Part way down the road we come to this house on the right hand side. There's a footpath that runs alongside this. It passes a small patch of allotments. These will keep the fans happy. For those who are new, finding these is a running joke. The path runs around the back of the village through some fields, and I had to be quite careful in places. Here's why. Now, of course, this footpath is always going to be a tricky one to follow if there's a tractor in the field And there is a tractor in the field right now, as you can see right there. I think it goes straight across, but of course I want to avoid the tractor at all costs because I don't want to get mown down by it. I don't think it's going to stop me, quite frankly. So instead I'm following the edge of the field. It'll still come out at the same place, and then we'll continue with the walk around Haunton. Haunton's standout feature is Haunton Hall, a Grade 2 listed building. This has strong links to Roman Catholicism. In 1904, a group of French nuns, namely the Sisters of St. Joseph of Bordeaux, set up a convent in Haunton Hall. It later became the St. Joseph Convent School for Girls. It closed in 1987, and Haunton Hall then became a nursing home. The hall's ties to Catholicism go back to 1845, when a chapel was provided at the hall. These days, Haunton has a Catholic church. Between it and the hall is Haunton's phone box, which I'm afraid is a completely empty shell. Now let's go to the church. Dedicated to Saints Michael and James, it was built in 1902 to replace an original 1855 church that itself replaced the chapel at the hall. Built of stone in a neo-Gothic style, it has a small timber bell tower and contains stained glass from the firm of John Hardman and Company. It was designed by Edmund Kirby with the support of Lady Frances Mostyn, the mother of the future Archbishop Francis Mostyn. Almost around the complete circuit of Haunton now, here's another listed building, the 19th century red brick Haunton Grange. Oh, and for those wondering about the village's spooky sounding name, it's believed to be Old English, and it means Hagona's Farm. So there's enough in Haunton for it to have its own episode, really, but of course it falls within a bigger parish, and that is Clifton Campville, and that is where we're heading now. It's a mile or so that way to the east. Let's go and explore that for our main walk. In Clifton Campville, we begin with Chestnut Lane, a long straight road which runs along the eastern edge of the village. This probably wasn't the best street to start the walk with because it's wholly residential and it has very few landmarks we can actually talk about. It does, though, give me an opportunity to talk about the Camvill part of the place name. It derives from Clifton's ancient landowners. From 1200, Clifton was held by the de Camville or de Canville family until at least 1338. They were French. If you know your French history and or geography, they came from the Normandy manor of Canville-la-Roque in La Manche. Through the de Camville family line, it passed to the Staffords and the Vernons until the Coventry family acquired it in 1700. They would sell it to Sir Charles Pye, whose descendant Harry James Pye became High Sheriff of Staffordshire in 1840. Now, before we go any further, I have to give a shout out to the PCSO who stopped me as I was leaving Haunton, interested in what I was doing. Well, Davina, if you're watching, you can now see the fruits of my labour, and I do hope you are enjoying what you're seeing. Right, let's continue down this main road. Very simple walk this around Clifton Campville. It's just a simple circle. Really, that's all it is. So we're going to walk down here, we're going to pass the pub, which you can see on the right up there. There's a church to see in this village as well, and a few other bits and bobs. It's very easy. This is the currently closed Green Man pub. It's an 18th century building with a low-beamed bar and a restaurant. I'm unsure of its current situation, but it was rumoured its outbuildings could be demolished to make way for new bungalows in 2021. Here's Clifton's parish notice board, so another card was left here too. That's 3 down in Lichfield and 25 to go. Amenities-wise, Clifton lacks some of the basics. It has no shop, but there are a few roadside stalls, like this one for example. Next to pass is another old red phone box. This one houses a defib machine, and there's a second one at the village hall. This one is also Clifton's book exchange. So far, none of the ones we've met in Staffordshire still have working phones. There's no dedicated post office here anymore, but this is the old post office building at 117 Main Street. The road now starts to climb gently, flanked on either side by housing as we head towards a mini roundabout. It's there we encounter a telephone exchange. Operated by BT, this was enabled for ADSL in June of 2004, for those interested. Okay, and after not very many more paces, you come to this mini roundabout, and if you take a right turn at said mini roundabout, you're heading into Derbyshire over the county border and into Lullington. And what a lovely little village that was, I'm sure you'll agree. For us though, we're not going back to Lullington, we're heading up the hill up here, and then we're heading down towards the church. On the right hand side after the roundabout there's a block of new builds. The road now starts to climb more steeply. Next up we have the school, St Andrew's Church of England Control Primary. Ofsted rated this outstanding in 2009. As the hill flattens out, the end of Church Lane appears on the left. This will take us towards the church, but also the village hall. Dating back well over a century, the village hall is Clifton's focal point for communal matters, including parish meetings. In 2019, funding was secured from 3 bodies to transform it into a more safe and easily accessible multi-purpose community hub. Just beyond it, the parish church of St Andrew, tall spire and all, comes into view in the Staffordshire sunshine. I'll tell you something, now those clouds have cleared and we've got a bit of blue sky, it ain't half come warm. You will have noticed the sunglasses are on now. The hat's not though, I've left that in the car. I think it's quite warm enough for that now. Okay, we've reached the church, we've climbed up the hill, and now it should be a case of going back down the hill. But of course on the way we still need to talk about this and a few other interesting bits and bobs. You'll notice we've got the War Memorial right in front of the church as well. We'll talk about both of these things next. Entering the churchyard, the first thing you see is a war memorial. There's also a memorial tablet inside the church, set into a wall. St Andrew's is a Grade 1 listed building and it stands on the site of a church mentioned in the Domesday Book. Nothing remains of that building now, but some parts here date back to the year 1200, with traces of 13th century wall paintings. The tower and spire, which reach a combined height of about 210 feet, were built in the 14th century. Let's go inside. The interior also has 14th century features, including some carved oak screens. The rood screen is from the 15th century. St Andrews was restored by G.E. Street in the second half of the 19th century and again by W.D. Carrow in the early 20th. There's a number of effigies in this church. Notable ones include Sir John Vernon and his wife, Ellen Montgomery. In 1984, St Andrew's spire was struck by lightning, which caused a lot of damage to the church. Repairs were completed in 1987. There is so much to look at in this church. It is unreal. It's unreal. Have a look at this tomb for a start. This is quite amazing. Let me just come around this side. You get a better view from this side, so there we go. Isn't that fabulous? Difficult to read the writing, as I'm sure you'll be aware with other ones we've seen like this. Let's head into the chancel here, because there's more than just that. There's these on the wall, big tablets on the wall, huge tablets in fact. Cavernous chancel. Nicky would be all over this ceiling, this timber framed ceiling. Amazing, absolutely fantastic. Now before I came into this church, I had a chance meeting with the administrator. I didn't get a name unfortunately, but I was given by her quite an interesting piece of information. Chinook helicopters. Don't know whether you guys are familiar with those. They're basically army helicopters, the ones with 2 blades. They fly over here regularly, and because Clifton Campville is on a hill, the spire of the church is used as a guide point because it's the tallest structure around here. It's an interesting little fact to put into this video, isn't it? Certainly something I would never have guessed, but then again, tall buildings do have their advantages, don't they? Okay, let's head out of this church and down through what is effectively it's like a nature area, I think, that's to the back of this. The path that goes through it leads us back to Chestnut Lane, where we began. I'm absolutely loving this church. I must admit, I would stay here a lot longer if I didn't have other villages to film. Trust me, it's well worth your time if you come into St Andrew's Church. Behind the church is Coney Berry Millennium Green, an 8-acre open space set up in the year 2000 for the new millennium. It was funded with grant aid from the National Lottery and the Countryside Commission, and it's managed by a charitable trust. It's easily the most peaceful part of Clifton Campville, and it's divided into several areas. This is a wildflower area. This sculpture is called Joining, and surrounding it are 4 large stones. They're compass points, north, south, east and west. The sculpture also acts as a sundial and bears the initials of children who were living in the parish at the start of the century. The Coneyberry name comes from an ancient water source called Coneyberry Well, located at Clifton Ponds. Oh, and as if the green itself wasn't lovely enough, its location on a hill means you get some cracking views from here. Coneyberry Well and Clifton Ponds now form part of this green, which for a long time was used as farmland and for rough grazing. Coney, by the way, is an old-fashioned name for a rabbit. This area was believed to have been riddled with rabbit warrens in medieval times. You can amble right through the green back to Chestnut Lane, and it's not a hard walk either. It was a great way to end this episode. Driving away from Clifton Campville, I couldn't help but think how important this area would once have been to so many people for religious reasons. It may be less so nowadays, but Clifton Campville is still a spectacular hilltop village, one that everyone should visit. I'll see you in the next one, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.